Let's see, did it? Oh, we're live on Facebook. Okay, that's exactly where we want to be. So then I'm just going to pull this up in Facebook so that I can see if there are any comments. I don't see it there. Well, maybe let's just go ahead and talk. And if there are comments, we'll handle that later because I'm just going to check one more way. All right, well, I don't see it there, but I'm going to trust it's there. Let me make sure it's not on my personal page because, oh, let's see, and you're live. Okay, we're here. You were on, okay, thank you, Danielle, you saved us. Now we can get to talking. Okay, so beautiful. The warmest welcome, Ben and Audra. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is my open house in Heat Up Your Marriage to be able, actually, it feels like this incredible reunion talking with various clients. And really, I'm doing it because, as the two of you know, but maybe somebody watching doesn't, I'm a physician turned relationship and intimacy expert. And I was just sharing before we came live that in general, I have two different kinds of clients. There are people who've done, either individuals or couples who've done lots of personal growth work, and they've been to retreats and seminars, and they know all about what it's like to coach. And so they're just happy to coach with me and what I uniquely offer. And then there are lots of other people who maybe they've done, a few sessions with a therapist way in the past, but mostly they haven't ever worked with anyone before. And I think actually one of the reasons is because they don't realize that anyone is offering what they're looking for until they meet me. And so they're willing to take that risk and find out. And so really, actually for both groups, I want to share what it's like to coach with me so that that doesn't need to be something holding anyone back. And it's actually not the easiest thing to do because I consider the coaching I do super customized, really individualized. And so that's why I'm inviting a number of different clients because each person's experience is really different. Of course, in the Aligned and Hot Marriage program, there's private coaching depending on if you enroll with the VIP or the regular. And later I'll be talking to someone who just did a program with me without private coaching. But today in this conversation, we're definitely delving into that. And I'd love to invite the two of you to just introduce yourselves, like who are you in the world, how long you've been together, and then we'll go deeper.
Okay. I'm Audra. I am from Canada. I do data visualization as a consultant and have done a lot of dancing in the past.
You know what? I love that because clearly you're such a logical person as well as a dancer. And I think it's important for logical people to know that relationship skills can be learned while remaining logical.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Audra.
Ben Emmer Aronson. I'm a psychologist and I co-founded a nonprofit called Open Source Wellness that works with underserved communities around health and well-being. We've been together 3 years now and just got engaged this spring, in part thanks to COVID and in big part thanks to Alexandra. So,
okay, well, let's dive right in there.
Yeah.
Like, what was, and I want to be really clear. I'm looking at my phone. That's why I feel more connected to people looking at my phone, but that's a tech illusion. If anyone has any questions or comments, or you want to say how lovely Ben and Avra are, go ahead and post, and we're happy to receive your comments. Let's dive in there, because when we first started working together, you were not engaged.
Yeah, it's
No.
true.
Definitely not. Yeah.
And any conversations around engagement felt like charged and like aggressive and hard, just like really hard. It was not a conversation that we could have easily together.
Are you open to saying a little bit about why that was for you personally, Ben?
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple pieces of it. One is, I think, like many men, I have this real sense of like a desire to be a good man, be a good person. And I felt like when Avra and I would talk about the relationship moving forward, or like progressing on our path, it often felt kind of accusatory, or like I wasn't being a good person, like I was doing something wrong as a man. And so it just brought up all this like conditioning and emotional reflex on my part that made it really hard to have the conversation.
Yeah, and is that what you meant to be conveying, Avra, that he was a bad person?
No, but the not that he was a bad person, but the sense of urgency definitely was real for me. And so I was conveying, or I did feel like I wanted progress and forward movement, probably like many women.
Yeah, and actually, the two of you said something to me which was super insightful, and not something that I had so specifically had my mind on, and I'll explain why. And I think it's incredibly common. And that is, I'm going to say it in my words, and you please adjust it if it doesn't feel true, but that you both really loved one another and do love one another. And that was never the question, but that you felt stuck because you did not want to repeat the patterns of your parents. And whatever fabulous, wonderful people they are, each of your parents had what I'm going to just casually call dysfunctional relationships and divorce and things that weren't inspiring, and the kind of thing that you didn't want to experience. You'd experienced it as a child. You didn't want to be experiencing that as a spouse. And the reason that that really spoke to me is that that is totally true for me too. But I mean, I'm older than the two of you. I'm different generation, different context, and I got married and was already committed to someone when I faced the reality of not wanting to repeat the patterns of my parents' relationship, and realizing that I couldn't imagine something other than getting divorced, because my parents had gotten divorced, but I was already in a committed relationship with someone whose parents also got divorced, and we navigated that from there. And the thing that I found like tender and wise and exquisite and profoundly self-respecting on both of your parts is that you didn't actually want to make that commitment unless you found a way to be on a trajectory which wasn't headed towards imitating any of the relationships your parents had. So that's something that touched me deeply, that I admire about the two of you. And I'd love for each of you to just say like how that lives in you, or how you think about what I've just said.
Yeah, so I remember, well, I think, yes, what you just said was like a big reason why we had, or at least I had, all this existential angst, as you say, around commitment, even though I did really love him and do. And then I remember you saying something in our intensive day that was like, that we were both sort of like repulsed by commitment or something, or repelled. which which was like a thing that was, I think, it was making it hard to do that commitment, and also hard not to, in a way. Like it was, the commitment thing was sort of getting things wrapped up.
Yeah, it was like almost like an allergic reaction to something that was in your home.
Right. So it was hard to make that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, because if you had broken up despite loving one another so much, that wouldn't have actually resolved the problem with commitment that you were facing staying together.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny, now that we've made the commitment, it's like evaporated. And I have felt that making big decisions in the past, like a lot of fear and anxiety around doing it, but then doing it kind of gets you over the edge or to the other side or something. And then, I'm not saying like there aren't hard times or something, but I don't feel afraid of all the things that I felt afraid of before we technically got engaged.
You know, I love that you say that, because I really want a presence that when you first reached out and we started working together, I did not have the goal that the two of you would get engaged. Like, I wasn't coaching you to become engaged. I was coaching you to resolve the fear of commitment, not to get you to commit, but to resolve the fear of commitment so that the two of you could choose with internal spaciousness. And so I just love so much what you just said. What about you, Ben? How do you talk about this to yourself or to us now?
Well, when I think back, one of the things that was super helpful to me was your framing of like our progress in this question of commitment as one of integrity. That we were not willing to like, or maybe I particularly was not willing to get engaged just to like move us forward in the conversation or to appease Audra or something like that. That it was only something that I was willing to do with full integrity. And you highlighted that as a good thing, which was particularly important for me in that moment, because I was feeling so like troubled and pained at all the pain that I was causing Avra and the like upset that I was causing her. And so that reminder that like us taking this decision really seriously and us moving intentionally and with integrity was a good thing, was so important, was profoundly important. Like it let me, I don't know, move forward with that decision and let me say like the progress that we're making and the pace that we're going is a good thing, and not, well, again, not a way I'm being a bad man.
Yeah, I really love that you said that, Ben, because I think one of the most common experiences that I have when I'm coaching couples, where invariably they both love one another, they want to stay together, and each individual is different, each relationship is different. I'm very attuned to the uniqueness, and there are some general patterns. And in a heteronormative relationship where there's this love and desire to be with one another, I would say that most of the time, the growth and the edgy, unexpected work for the man is to really honor his own experience. And that goes kind of countercultural to, you know, all the people, well, we live in a patriarchal society and we really need to honor the feminine. And all of that is real. And it's also real that in modern loving relationships, men often like just like skim over their own internal experience in order to serve their woman. And as women, it's lovely to be served. But the kind of intimacy and connection and passion that grows with the decades, that requires both people's experiences to be honored. And it is a big deal to be a man in a relationship with a vibrant woman and honor his own experience. Will you speak to that?
I don't know that I could put it any better than what you said. Like, that's beautiful. And I think that you're right. I think that is a real challenge, particularly in these days. And I think it's one that's not often attended to. I know, even just as you were saying it, I felt like I don't know, like a softening and oh, it's going to be okay feeling.
Will you? I love that so much. And I want to remind anyone watching that you're absolutely welcome. This is a rare opportunity. If you have any questions or reflections, please go ahead and post them. I have my phone here to see what it is. I'd love actually to hear from both of you how what we just talked about with honoring Ben's experience, how that plays out in the day-to-day, either in big decisions or in choosing where you take a walk or go for dinner. Well, we're in COVID, you're going for dinner at home, but where you're ordering it, like how does that, what we've just discussed is a beautiful life affirming principle. Tell us about the application.
You can.
All right,
Yeah.
I can speak to that. So sometimes Ben will say to me, like sort of randomly and like in a non-charged moment, he'll say, "I exist to make you happy." And it feels really good. It feels good that like I have this person who wants to make me happy. It feels great. And it's a non-codependent kind of way. But then, often like he doesn't want to do what I want him to do. Or we'll have fights in it. And he like insists on having his genuine experience. And I am, at first sometimes I'm a little bit like, oh, bummer. Like I can't just like override.
You can't just be controlling, manipulative, and get your own way, all under the guise of feminine empowerment.
Right. Like, why doesn't he just listen to me? Like, that's super annoying. And then I also recognize that it's really good for the integrity of the relationship, and it is the rational thing for like equal people in a relationship to be able to be their own opinion, selves, and have their own experience without being totally like steamrolled or dominated by one person, and not like giving in just because the other person wants to have it a certain way. So ultimately I appreciate when that happens.
Yeah. And actually, yesterday, in the third day of redefining intimacy on erotic intimacy, I spent a lot of time talking about both and, because I think probably we all have both tendencies, but in general, one person in the relationship has more of one tendency and the other of either prioritizing their own experience or prioritizing the other person's experience. And either way, there's less connection, and there's so much more connection when both people's experiences honored, which I think you've just named. Ben, go ahead, Audra.
Like ultimately I want to connect with him, right? So if he's just deferring to me or something, even though it's what I think maybe I want, it's not really
feel good. Right.
Like you can't, hugging someone flaccid is not that satisfying.
Right. Yeah, you want a good hug.
Yeah, and like feel that person.
Participatory hug, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Literally and as a metaphor. Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, so I was thinking of like a really kind of concrete way that this is played out. I grew up like really nerdy and like really kind of rational and logical and focused and stuff. And there's still a good bit of my like internal view of myself that's there. And so when I decided to buy a motorcycle 2 years ago, it was like really at conflict with kind of this view of myself and like what other people, including present company, thought I should do. uh, and it's honestly been like one of the best decisions I've made in my life. And it seems weird to say that something as mundane or like, you know, practical as a transportation vehicle could be the best decision in your life. But it was a time where I really like decided for myself how I wanted to do things, knowing that there were people in my life that didn't approve of it and people who really mattered to me that didn't approve of it and thought it was objectively the wrong decision. And it was something where I like weighed that out and still wanted to move forward with that. And it's just brought me um, like an incredible range of experiences and friendships and like abilities that I never would have had. And so it's, to me, that's kind of the best concrete example of where um, like mm, uh, how'd you phrase it, the like holding my own experience played out in the day to day and with such incredible outcomes.
I love that. And like, as someone who just adores the two of you so much, I just want to celebrate it. And the coach in me wants to also presence that you made the decision honoring your own experience despite other people maybe not being so happy about it, and it worked fantastically well. You feel so good about it. And it's also possible that you might make a decision honoring your experience and it doesn't go so well, and like it falls flat and you realize, oh, that's not actually what you wanted, and here you did all this, like you went through all of this to really assert yourself, and it turns out it wasn't the thing that serves you. And so I just want to say that what we're talking about includes messing up also, like to be able to take action and honor how we feel. That is a skill that needs to be learned, and it includes making decisions that aren't so great. And I'm thrilled that you made such a good one. I want to read what Joni says here. She says, I appreciate you saying this. And hi, Joni. I'm so happy you're on here. Let me look this way to say hello and look this way to read it. I feel like I'm like a weird hologram here. I appreciate you saying this about men needing to have their own experience and be able to communicate that. And what happens when that experience, and what happens when that experience feels violating and unsolicited. I'm going to keep reading, but like in this case, you didn't, Audra, describe just feeling like your boundaries were crossed and you really suffered. I know that you went through a lot because Ben riding a motorcycle is a big deal, but this is a different flavor. So we're going to address that in a second. So I just wanted to be clear what Joni's saying, that, you know, when men need to have their own experience and be able to communicate that, what happens when that experience feels violating and unsolicited? I'm not sure how to receive that, currently experiencing this. I don't want to hear my partner's experience because it feels assaulting and insensitive in the current context. And then I feel like a jerk for not allowing him to speak what's going on for him. And she says, hi, guys. Okay. I definitely have a response. Do either of you, based on living this way, is there something that comes to mind that you want to say?
Well, it's kind of hard to know without a little bit more detail, but I think what we're talking about is experiences that don't have anything to do with me per se. Like him wanting to ride a motorcycle didn't have anything to do with me or directed at me. So it wasn't something he wanted to do with me or say to me or anything. It was like his own thing. So that might be like, I don't know, it's a bit of a different flavor. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, I was thinking about it as you were reading the question, and how do you like balance having your experience and living into the world and without just like beating up on the people around you. And what came to mind for me was connection, that it's like that I have my experience and I share my experience, but I don't just like act on that without attending to the people around me and the impact that it has. And it's a super hard balance, that like the trying to maintain both the your own boundaries and protecting when you need to protect and saying like, listen, I'm not available for this right now, with like being available for your partner is a, I think, challenging dynamic.
Yeah, Joni says, yes, that makes sense. And there's lots of heart emojis. And I think both of you have highlighted two super important things. One, that while I know that Ben does like to go on the motorcycle with you, that fundamentally purchasing the motorcycle wasn't about you and your work. I mean, I wasn't coaching you then, but your work would be to be really clear that it's not actually about you when it's not about you. And
always a good reminder.
yeah. And Ben, your point that it is kind of a razor thin line to share and honor your experience in connection, because it's easy to go towards not honoring your experience. Some people tend more that way, and other men tend more towards dominating and aggressively pushing their experience. And so the thing that, like, I want to say a few things here. One is that for Ben, it really was good, like essential for both you and your relationship to dial up your attention to your needs and experiences and desires. And if, as Joni describes, when your man is sharing, it feels assaulting and violating, unsolicited and violating, then his work is actually to tone it down. So not all men are in the same situation that Ben was in, even though this is a general trend. And I think the real work for your partner, Joni, is to honor his own experience in a way that is totally honoring of yours. That's to you, Joni. And yeah, so maybe I'll leave it at that. But I think in every kind of behavior in relationship, it's not that there's a good way and a bad way. I much more often see that there's the extreme in this direction and the extreme in this direction. And in the middle is where the connection is. So in this instance, on the one side, it's being like unsolicited, violating, dominating. I'm not saying your partner's doing this, Joni, but like that whole flavor, which is essentially more dominating and bullying. And on the other is total withholding. And in the middle is attention on both. So she says, I think he would say that he was totally calm. So then it's really about you, Joni, conveying what your experience is in a way that he can receive it. Like there are no simple formulas, but both of you need to cultivate the capacity to honor your own and one another's experiences. And so it sounds like, and we've discussed this, Joni, that like the potency here is for you to honor your experience and to guide him to honor your experience because he wants to.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share an example of the situation with the motorcycle. So Ben definitely wants to ride, like part of his desire, he wanted to ride the motorcycle with me, and I kept saying no. And he had this like desire to like go on a motorcycle camping trip. And I felt kind of caught because if I said no, then I'm like completely disappointing him and dashing his dreams. And that felt bad to me. And also I didn't want to do it. So we actually figured out how to have like a really nice connection around it, because I said, I realized that I would feel okay going on a motorcycle camping trip if there were no highways involved. And so, which sent him on a task, which he really likes, which was to find a campground that didn't have any highways to get to it and plan this trip. And he did. He found a beautiful campground in San Mateo. We didn't have to go on any highways. I felt safe, and we had a really beautiful trip.
I love that. I love that story. I knew the challenge. I didn't realize that then there was this campground with no highways and you had that's amazing.
Which is a real trick, since like most of the directions out of San Francisco involve a highway bridge. Like it really limited where we could go.
3/4 of the city is highway to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm sure made the success that much more delightful. Okay, so I want, like, again, like, it's just so beautiful to marinate in the loveliness and how the two of you relate, and how like one of the things that I want to highlight is that in pretty much everything both of you have said, what you're not doing when there's the potential for conflict or differences in perspective and desires, what you're not doing is turning away from it. What you're not doing is putting it under the rug. You're like finding how to stay connected while honoring both people's experiences. Like it's just exquisite and so gratifying to hear you speak. And I wonder, is there anything that you would say to someone who's interested in coaching with me about anything like the experience of coaching with me that helped you pivot into this way of being?
Yeah, I would say it's completely worth it. And because of your kind of, I don't know, like very perceptive way of identifying like spot on what the hurt is or what the challenge is, what the like the stuff in the way is that are causing like the problems in the present. So you just really pointedly, like at various stages, helped us see and heal from particular things that was invaluable.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think it's sometimes hard to imagine how many blind spots we have until someone starts gently shining the light, because by definition, we don't perceive our blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually funny to me because I do have all these testimonies from people who've done one coaching session with me for one reason or another. And so much is possible in a short time because of that. What would you say, Ben? Like you've both made so many changes in like, not in the essence of your relationship, but in how it's expressed and how you feel it with one another. Is there anything in particular that comes to mind about coaching with me that has helped facilitate that?
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like I'm always irritated by those testimonials that are like, I worked with so-and-so and now I have everything I ever wanted. And like I remember before our intensive day, you had us write out like our goals. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting down to write that and thinking about the things that I thought were like reasonable to get or reasonable to expect. And then I was like, fuck it. Like, what she's asking for is like, what do you want? And so I just went totally unreasonable, and I like wrote out my unreasonable wishes for what I wanted in our relationship. And that happened. I remember like thinking back to it and being like, huh, look at that. And it was absurd to just to see those transformations happen. And I think that there's that piece of it, which is just the outcomes were awesome. You know, I love working with you. And then there's the how you do it, which I always love. And it makes it hard to work with other people because you set a very high bar, but you just have this
I'm unapologetic.
Unapologetic, as you should.
I don't regret that.
But you have like this ability to like, you have both really keen insight and like a really sharp mind, but then also a highly developed intuition. And so finding both of those in the same person is rare.
Yeah.
And I think that was, for me, the thing that was most special about working with you was that you were able to bring both that rational, logical skill set, as well as like a really clear, heart-centered, intuitive way of knowing and being.
Thank you. I'm really glad. And I think the two of you know, like, I care about this so much because, as I've said many times, and I'm sure I will again, that I really believe that having a fantastic relationship is a learnable skill. And the thing that creates the gap for so many people is not some inherent problem with people or picking the wrong person, even. It's genuinely a lack of education. So I'm excited for students. Okay, well, that's beautiful. And I think that's probably a good place to end. If anyone has any questions, either now or later, you can post them, and one of the three of us or all three of us will certainly respond. Any last words about the experience coaching with me, about your relationship, about your future? Like, what's arising in your heart right now?
I'm just feeling appreciative of the fact that we got to work with you, and it just makes me feel really warm.
I'm so glad. So glad. Ben?
Nothing I could add to that.
Okay, well, wish you both a really beautiful day, and everyone watching, thank you for joining us. And if you want a piece of this, you can certainly join the Aligned and Hot Marriage program or reach out to me directly. There's a bonus for anyone who signs up by Friday night to have a free coaching session, and I would love to shine the light on your blind spots, whoever you are watching right now. And with that, we'll say goodbye.